Hello, Better Call Saul fans. We are here from Gold Derby to do kind of a recap of the finale, what we thought of the finale, and maybe talk about its Emmy chances coming up. I'm Marcus James Dixon. I am here with Joyce Eng and Charlie Bright and Matt Noble joining us from the future timeline.
Hello.
Matt, I want to talk to you first because you have a board behind you. You came prepared.
Yes. Well, it's such an intricate show, so many things going on. You've got to have a plan and you've got to execute well. And I want to make sure my plan and execution is perfect today for our Better Call Saul series breakdown.
Do you have color-coded Post-its? Because I can't tell. I mean, I knew Marie's outfit was purple last night, obviously, even though it was black and white, but
yeah, they are color-coded. Don't you worry.
Well, let's kind of talk about what we thought overall of the finale. I think all three of you loved it. You would all give it an A+++. I was more on the B+ side of things. But Joyce, let's go to you first. What was so good? What was your favorite scene? What are your big takeaways?
I love the whole thing, even though it was so long. It was like over an hour long. All of its episodes, like this season or recently, have been so long. But I just thought it was
Stranger Things long though.
It wasn't, and obviously also had commercial breaks, a lot of commercials. So, but I just thought it was the perfect ending for that story, that arc. It really got to, like the crux of the show, which is like actually like that love story between Saul or Jimmy and Kim. And it also got back into the roots of the legal system and what he was good at, which was just talking and just ruling in the court. And he finally gave up Saul. Like he changed, he proved Chuck wrong. And it also goes back to the whole Breaking Bad universe, because Walt was a chemistry teacher, and he literally says in the show like chemistry is the study of change, and we saw him change from Mr. Chips to Scarface, as Vince Gilligan had always planned. And this is Jimmy breaking good, and he did the right thing for once. And it's a tragic ending, but he got what he deserved, even though he sacrificed the 7 years for 86 years. But he did it for the person he loved. He finally put someone else first besides himself. He, stopped his self-destructive ways. And they still have a spark in black and white from the cigarette flame and the embers. So there's still something there. And it's a tragic ending, but it's still sort of happy, or like sort of optimistic, with good behavior. Who knows?
Right. And is that Saul Goodman I see dressed up so fancy? Oh no, that's Charles Bright.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of the finale?
All right. Well, just tell him to plead guilty then. I don't care if he goes to jail. I'm not a lawyer. Why are you calling me? Anyhow, what were you asking?
Incredible Oakley impression there. So
thank you. I thought it was great. It was so weird going into the season. I remember thinking that the show was going to end with Jimmy making that final transformation into Saul Goodman. And what I thought was going to happen was, I thought it was going to be that last episode would be Kim going out of the picture, whether it was she dies or she has to go into witness protection or something. But we saw that happen like 3 or 4 episodes ago. And what was interesting, and I did not expect, even though we were getting the at the beginning of each season, we were getting the flashes to the current timeline. I was not expecting this to actually come full circle. So for it to do that was I thought incredibly clever and well thought out on the part of Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. I thought it was it hit for me all the right notes. It had Jimmy or Saul or Jimmy being Saul or Jimmy, especially like I love that look that he has when he's at the negotiations and he gets them down to 7.5 years and he keeps pushing them. And I just thought that was I thought that was so funny. But the way he the way he comes around for the one person who we know he truly cared about, which was Kim.
And then when his face fell when they told him like, oh, she already, confessed last month, basically. And he thought that was like his ace in the hole.
Yeah. Oh man, it was heartbreaking. And I love that they kept the black and white throughout the whole thing. I thought that was really cool. Mm-hmm. I think if it was any other showrunner or show, I would say that's some pretentious garbage. But it actually really worked, especially in the last episode. And we see it in this episode with the lighter for this, with the cigarette, with the end of the cigarette lit. But the way that when we see the reflection of the YouTube video of his old commercials, we see the reflection in color, and I loved that so much. I thought it was so great. This is something that had no business being as good as it was. I remember when
the show had no business being as good as it was.
Yeah, no, when it was first announced, I remember, Marcus, you were saying earlier that you went back and watched our Breaking Bad finale recap
from 2014, I think it was.
The 2013, because it was right after the 2013 Emmys when they won their first one.
They won their first drama series Emmy on the night that Granite State aired.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I remember thinking when it was first announced that they were going to do this, I was thinking it was going to be like a comedy procedural. Mm-hmm. And then very quick, and there's definitely still a lot of the absurdist tones that we saw in the first 2 seasons of Breaking Bad, but it definitely became something much, and it just shows that I think Vince Gilligan and the crew that he has around him are some of the best storytellers that we've ever had in television.
Okay, Matt, what did you think of the finale?
I did think it was like incredible. I think they've landed the plane really well here. I think the big question I had for Better Call Saul that was maybe a bit different to Breaking Bad as we approached the end of that show was like they had done such an amazing job of building empathy for Jimmy McGill and Kim as well. And the big question I had this season was, can, in this sort of black and white world that they've set up in season 1, can they find redemption in any way? Like, will there be redemption at the end of this story for them? I think there's like so many biblical themes running throughout, like warring brothers and sort of, like lots of little, biblical quotes like Jimmy saying earlier this season, if, the wicked flee when no one pursueth and things like that. And like, just will he find redemption at the end of the day? And he does, in a way that sort of Walter White never was able to in Breaking Bad, in a way where, Walter White's pride always sort of got to him. And Jimmy was able to find redemption in an incredible scene in a courtroom with Kim right there. Kim found her redemption too by returning to Albuquerque, and it was really through the truth that they both found redemption. I think that was lovely themes and just a wonderful way to end. It was tragic, but there was also something really sort of sweet about it, and something where at the end of the day, Jim and Kim can come together and sort of reflect, and that sort of relationship is intact. And in some ways they brought out the worst in each other, and as Kim said earlier in the season, we're bad for each other, but I think they also had the capacity to bring out the best in each other, because there was sort of an unconditional love between the two and a sort of support for each other when everyone else in the world was against them. So I think it was just really lovely. And then you've got all these amazing, incredible like things that are happening in this final episode. Like I love that, like the attorney that Jimmy was going head to head again from season 1 ends up being his co-counsel in the case. I love that you have a Chuck McGill scene. I love that you open with a Mike scene. I love the scene with Walter White, so we can reflect on the end of Walt's journey in Breaking Bad and compare it to the end of Jimmy's journey in Better Call Saul. And that scene towards the end, or one of the last scenes with Jimmy and Kim in the jailhouse where they're smoking, and I'm pretty sure that is like a direct callback to the very first scene they have together where they're smoking outside.
And then the light is just from the opposite direction.
Yeah. So like that is just so cool. Like, and just the little things like, you know, Kim in the courtroom tapping her foot, like even that, you're like, oh, they've done such a good job on this. And I think for me, I don't know, it's still so fresh. I need to rewatch Breaking Bad like Joyce did, but I think the show is as good as Breaking Bad for me. And I think like, because I probably started enjoying Better Call Saul before I started enjoying it. It took me a few years to get into Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul, like, I feel like I've sort of...
Wait, you started watching Better Call Saul first?
No, sorry. It took me, I didn't really get into Breaking Bad till about...
Oh, you mean like when you were watching
late in the second season. Yeah, late in the second season, maybe. Like that 1 minute episode was really my turning point, which I think it was maybe in season 3, which really, or maybe season 2, which really hooked me into Breaking Bad. Whereas Better Call Saul, by the end of the first season, I was pretty invested in these characters and the story and want to see where it goes. It was a much slower burn, and they put more, like, I think it was more about the characters at the end of the day in Better Call Saul. And Breaking Bad, even though it was such a great character study, it was like a bit more by the end about the thriller of, you know, are they going to get it?
I also think that's why it has never done well at the Emmys. Like it's never won an Emmy because it's just so much slower. And if you go into it expecting like Breaking Bad 2.0, it's not that at all. It's not a thrill ride with a lot of high stakes. Like a lot of the stuff in Better Call Saul is just people doing super mundane things, just a lot of boring in quotes, because I love them. But like to most people, they might think this is a waste of time to spend 4 minutes watching Mike take apart a battery, you know?
Yeah, they let scenes breathe, and they let characters have their moments, and they let sort of like, and just the shots, the cinematography was so, I have no idea.
And
how
it's never been nominated for cinematography.
It's never got a nomination. That's wild.
I imagine if the Emmy voters had a time machine, they would go back and give Better Call Saul maybe even
that's their regret.
That's their huge
regret.
But
if they had a time machine, first thing they need to do is go back and get Jonathan Banks that Emmy for the first season, because
2015.
I recently rewatched that episode and I just started weeping all over again. He's so good at that, and that's what I loved about this show. It gave these added dimensions to these characters that we already loved. That was the crazy thing.
And it was so smart for them to start the finale with a Mike and Jimmy scene, because I thought we were done with Mike. I thought, we saw him 2 episodes ago with that scene with Jimmy in his office, and I'm like, okay, that's the last time we're gonna see Mike. So it was really great, especially going back to the Bagman episode, which was one of the highlights of the whole show for me. So it was great, their whole conversation back and forth. Like we never saw them interacting like that, so it was really fun.
What do you think here's something that's interesting. What do you think the date was that because remember, he initially said like December 18th or December 8th, 2001, before going back to the one event he would go back to. And then he said changed it to sometime in the 80s when he took his first bribe. What do you think that
I think my theory
first one was his son's death.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I was thinking it was when he had that conversation with his son.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our favorite moments from the finale. Mine is when he was walking down the being escorted by his lawyer, and he looks over and he sees Betsy Brandt, Marie. I couldn't believe it. I rewound it. I'm like, of all of the Breaking Bad characters, Marie was the one I thought would never show up here. Like they just always treated her kind of unfairly on that show, the writers did. And so I couldn't believe she was here, and she gave a speech. And I think that scene at the table where Jimmy was kind of conning the prosecutors into giving him a good deal was my favorite scene of the finale. What about Charlie?
Oh man, there are so many. I'm trying to think. There's so many that I absolutely adored. But I definitely think I think probably one that stands out for me is when right after he's caught and he's in that holding cell on his own, and you basically watch him have a nervous breakdown and then rebound almost immediately because he turns into Slip and Jimmy again. And I think that was particularly powerful. I also really liked the bus riding scene.
I didn't like that.
Because it's weird. I'm sort of two minds about that. I liked it but I also feel like I'm not sure how to feel about it because, like, on one hand, I'm like, he was a sleazy guy who probably took a lot of money from a lot of innocent people. This is outside of what he did with Walter White. But then you think, he was also someone who probably defended a lot of people who no one else was going to defend. And he would, and we know that he's a good lawyer. So he probably, if he wasn't swindling them, he probably gave them the best defense that he could. And, I think that's what made that interesting, of him. It's like the opposite of when a cop gets sent to prison. He's looked upon as royalty because he's helped so many of those people in different situations.
Matt, what's your favorite scene?
Oh man, there's like so many, and I've touched on it. Like I've touched on a few of them. You've got the scene with Jimmy and Kim smoking at the end. I just thought was so lovely and such a nice cap. That probably was my favorite.
It was very
scene. But
hot.
also, yeah, the courtroom scene too, where they the courtroom scene where Jimmy does his big speech and confession. Really, yeah. I
kind of wish the smoking scene was the final scene and that they
didn't
come outside the prison. I didn't really know what was.
I read an interview with Peter Gould, and he said they thought about it, but they didn't want to suggest that like they got back together because like they're not. It's just like them just acknowledging that they're still in each other's lives and they've like made up basically or whatever, and like you could see her like just continuing to visit him, but they're not actually together. It's not a conjugal visit.
Right.
But I like the finger guns thing.
Yeah.
And they also said that they filmed a take with her doing them back, but they also didn't want that to imply that she's back in the game because she's not. So that's more like an acknowledgement of like, we had great times, right?
Yeah.
And Joyce, what was your favorite?
So many that everyone has already said. I guess I'll pinpoint specifically to his confession in court. And after he confesses to all the Walt stuff, he turns around and looks at Kim, but she still is kind of like unsure about like his intentions. And then it clicks for him. And then that's when he confesses about Chuck. So it's just like, you could see the realization in his face is so subtle, but it's great. I watched it because they aired it again last night, like the second time. So I watched it again. I'm like, now that you know like what to expect, so
yeah,
you could pay attention more.
Should the show have brought on Skylar White at all?
I was thinking so. Like when Marie popped up, I was like, if Anna Gunn doesn't show up, then she would have been like the only main character from Breaking Bad who was not on both shows, and also RJ Mitty, but I don't know why like Walt Jr. would ever be there. So,
and how old is Holly at this point? Like 2? Or she's
like 1.5, probably. Yeah, almost 2.
I would say 2.5.
Yeah.
There wasn't something I was hoping for from Skylar. Like there wasn't like, I don't think it like, if there was a scene that worked really well and fit with this. Yeah, if they'd written it well and it fit with the story and everything, I'm sure it would have been great. But it's not something that I'm disappointed we didn't see.
I feel like Francesca should have been in the courtroom. I think that's her name. his longtime assistant. And Carol Burnett should have been in that courtroom, just like this proud look on her face, like, I got you.
Huel, where's Huel? We didn't Huel for him too.
That's so weird because he lost so much weight since
Hugh is back in New Orleans. He's good. He got out of there.
That was so cool in the final season, that it was like I know she was playing a different character, but TV icon Carol Burnett, just seeing her in the Better Call world with Gene or Jimmy or Saul was really cool. And the fact that she was the one who foiled them was just delicious. More delicious than a cinema.
How great was it when when she finally confronts him, and so she takes the phone line out of the computer and puts it back into the phone. I couldn't with that.
Before we go, I wanted to talk about Emmys, because we are big awards nerds at Gold Derby, and Carol Burnett will be supporting eligible next year, not guest eligible, but Bryan Cranston could get in for guest. Aaron Paul
should get in for guest.
So also Giancarlo and Tony Dalton, because they only appeared in 2 in this section.
Right.
So, and Michael McKean, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Could Jonathan Banks, or was he in he's probably
no, he was in 4 because he was in the first 2, and then he was in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Betsy Brandt could get in for guests. So there's a lot of possibilities. What do we think for the upcoming 2022 Emmys? Is Better Call Saul finally going to win? I did put Bob at number 1. I told you this, Charlie. I put Bob at number 1 a week ago, and I'm not going to change it. Even though I'm probably going to be wrong, I think there's going to be a succession vote split, and it's either going to be Lee Jung-jae or Bob Odenkirk. I'm going with Bob.
I would love to see it.
Same here. And the thing is, well, we are sticking with this year for right now. So, it would be, I think one thing that if it does happen, if Bob or Rhea win, I think a lot of us would go that this final season boosted them. And they absolutely benefited from it, even though they have great episodes to submit for the previous part of the show.
And would deserve it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. I'd love to see that, and I haven't really thought about updating my predictions and stuff yet, but I could really see a Bob Wings. I think that category could go in so many different directions. With you've got Adam Scott as well in the mix. I think people love it, his performance in Severance, and and as you say, the Squid Game and Succession, and I think that him airing these episodes in the last couple of weeks, just as voting is about to start, really, or voting just has begun, and you've got it very much at the front of mind, it could make the difference. So I'd love to see that. And with Ray Seahorn too, because that's there's no clear front runner in that category. I think drama series might be trickier.
Yeah, I don't think it's winning drama series.
I think that's where it might be a little bit too much.
It's also writing, plan and execution is up for writing for Thomas Schnauz.
The writers are the only people who watch the show.
Yeah, it's weird that it always gets writing nominations, but not directing nominations. Even though it's visually so stunning, doesn't.
Yeah, they just don't. They like it enough to nominate it, but not to actually give it any wins. I mean, I would love for Bob to win. That's a really competitive category, like you said. I don't know about Hope Dictum, but I everything is it's building well for him to actually pull off the upset, because it is the final episodes, and he's really just the star of this last run because he has multiple episodes just to himself. It's like him and guest stars and Carol Burnett, when it's in the Gene timeline. And yeah, so it'll be great. Ray, I've had her in second since nominations. Because I think she's a wild card, since she is completely untested against all of these people because she's never been nominated before. So it's is this a case of she just had to get the nomination and now she's actually competitive? I don't know. She also got a second nomination in short form.
If there are voters that are thinking about Ray Seahorn, that the episode last week where she's crying on the bus, I know it's not eligible for this Emmys, but that would seep into your mind because that was like a couple days before voting started. So
Yeah, no, I said there
would
was.
help her.
I said to people that it's no coincidence. There's no way it's a coincidence that episode was the last episode that aired before Emmy voting started for this.
I know, like they completely. I think they also know that it'll be hard for them to maintain the momentum for next year.
Yeah,
Like, I think they know like this is like their actual like real final shot, even though they're eligible next year. But it's
They're
not
going
like,
all in.
yeah, like
They're
it's not
going
like a
all
Breaking
in on
Bad that they
this
could like
year's
win
Emmys.
or sweep next year because it's never won a single award
Right.
before. So I think they're just like going all in, yeah, like with these airing concurrently with phase 2. But yeah, I don't know. So I've predicted Ray Seahorn to get nominated every single year, and she never did. So this year I decided I wasn't gonna predict her, and she got in. So I've said that I feel
Joyce.
like I can't predict her to win because I will jinx her.
Yeah.
I could see a scenario where it doesn't get a single nomination next year except for Carol Burnett in supporting.
And then she wins. Then Carol Burnett
Right.
wins.
That'd be great. Just because I do agree with everything Joyce just said about the, I mean, even the Emmys that are coming up in a month, it really kind of feels like the last shot Better Call Saul has. It's certainly its best shot it will ever have. So I guess it's now or never.
if we were in the tape system like it used to, or if the tapes meant something like they used to, I think Bob Odenkirk would be a slam dunk next year. Because
that final was incredible for him.
Yeah, no, that performance was absolutely incredible, and it's the perfect thing of what they would normally like, range, everything like that. And if you had the more concentrated voting pool, it would be much easier to do, because stuff like that has happened, especially when they had that. But I don't know.
Like for next year, I think you're right. I think this is the year for it to strike, if it's going to strike anywhere. But sometimes the memory of Emmy voters can be like fickle. Like sometimes they forget things quickly. Sometimes their memory is long. I think things have been discounted before. And like the one thing in Better Call Saul's favor for next year's Emmys is, look, it's in the can and it's great. Like we know that it's sort of a quality season of TV. There might be a few other key contenders that have dud seasons next year and sort of fall out. Yeah, or may not even air eligible episodes. So at least we know Better Call Saul has eligible episodes. We know they're in the race for next year's Emmys, and they've got some great stuff to put in front of Emmy voters. So I wouldn't count out Jimmy for next season, but I do agree this is the time to strike. I also think we're sort of discounting it from drama series, I think with good reason, because I think it'll be very hard to overtake Succession. But like my view is this could be the greatest drama series never to win the best drama series Emmy. I think The Wire, a single Emmy, or I think even just the best drama series Emmy. The Wire is obviously one that a lot of people disagree with, so maybe it's in the top two. But I think St. Elsewhere's the only drama series that's received 6 nominations or more, and not for best drama series, and not gone on to win at some point the best drama series Emmy. And Better Call Saul made it 6th this year. It could get its 7th next year, and that'd be the most ever best drama series nominations without a win at some point.
Yeah, like I think it will get nominations next year, but I don't know about it winning. And I mean, I'll take any win at that point. I don't care. Mixing, just so I could call it an Emmy winning show.
Yeah, well, they've gone all in on this year, as we've said, but they have given themselves a little bit of a safety net for next year where they can, like, you know, and maybe there'll be a category that's a bit weaker next year. Who knows? But yeah, so.
Cinematography is a really, they need to get in for that next year, 100%. I mean, come on, Emmy voters.
It's just wrong that like Breaking Bad never won for cinematography. It also had amazing cinematography, and Better Call Saul has never even been nominated.
Yeah. What is your what was I going to say? What if you were Ray Seahorn next year? What episode would you submit, guys? Because I think she was so good last week in that penultimate episode, but I think the scene where she breaks up with Jimmy was like one of her best scenes of the show.
Yeah, in Fun and Games. I mean, I think before, until Waterworks aired, I think everyone would have said Fun and Games.
So good.
I liked the part 2 premiere. Was that called Point and Shoot?
Oh,
yeah.
She was unreal in the opening
I love
scene of that.
So great.
I think she would, if she gets in next year, I think she would do Waterworks because it's much more of a showcase for her, and you catch up with Kim. So
she's
and also she's so different.
And and even though she would be in supporting, she's the lead in that episode.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I love that bus scene.
Oh.
Well,
like that's really like what it's like if you're trying to not cry in public.
Yeah. and look, the scene we haven't talked about much now because it's in the penultimate episode, but how great was it seeing her with Jesse Pinkman? Kim Wexler and Jesse Pinkman together sharing a smoke.
What was so funny about that is I didn't realize this until I was looking on Twitter after it aired. The reveal of Jesse was very similar in the way that they went in the final episode of Breaking Bad when we see Skylar and then the camera moves and reveals that Walter is with her.
It's Vince Gilligan.
Yeah. It's so weird seeing Aaron Paul, who is obviously aged the most because of the ages that he's gone, because of the age that he is, and when he started. So it's weird seeing him still playing, Jesse Pinkman, who I'm guessing at that point is what, 19 or 20.
He's probably like 20. I will say I thought he looked younger in Waterworks than he did in Breaking Bad, the episode Breaking Bad before. Yeah. Like in the van. Yeah. In the RV.
Oh,
I don't know if it's because it was dark or not, but I thought he looked younger.
We were also going to see next year at the Emmys. So like we've had the last couple of years at Better Call Saul, sort of this real cluster F of supporting actor contenders from like, Michael Mando, Patrick Fabian, Jonathan Banks, Giancarlo Esposito. Is it, and like they've sort of haven't done as well in the supporting actor category the last couple of years. What with just Giancarlo getting in a nomination of their last 2 goes at it, is it just Jonathan Banks next year as supporting actor? Or all the rest going to be?
He's the one who's forced to go supporting. Yeah. They could still just submit Giancarlo and Tony in supporting like they did with Michael Mando for the current one, even though he was eligible for guest, but they submitted him in supporting.
Interesting.
And the taxi driver was in 3 of 6, so he
the taxi driver.
He was great.
I don't think he'll get in, but I mean that's where we'll have to go as well.
Maybe there's a path for Jonathan Banks to break back in.
What would be a fun nomination in guest actor would be Jim O'Hare for playing the Cinnabon eating security guard.
Just their like college football talk.
Yeah, just so. And I also feel that if you know anything about how it is to shoot scenes where you're eating, are some of the most tough scenes to shoot, especially because people that are having to eat it. And we saw him eating those Cinnabons. So I mean,
it's not just even eating it, but it's like they had to get the precise bites for it because they needed to time it to be 3 minutes too. I mean, I know they didn't actually film it for 3 minutes straight, but it's like you need to have the proportions right.
I thought there was a missed opportunity in the finale when he called Cinnabon to let them know you need a new manager. I thought
that's one of my favorite moments. That's one of my favorite moments too.
I thought he would say, by the way, will you go to the security room and tell whatever his name is that I'll miss him? I really wanted something like that because I feel like they are friends now.
I thought
he could have also gone to Lyle. He could have left Los Pollos Hermanos to go to Cinnabon. So.
Oh yeah, we've had 2 calls this season about tell him I won't be coming in today. Like,
funny. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. It was a great chat. It was a great show. And, at Gold Derby, we have a forums area. We go in and talk about Better Call Saul. There's a lot of people talking about the finale right now. And you can go make your predictions for the Emmys, for the Oscars, and box office and Billboard and all that fun stuff at goldderby.com. Thanks for watching.